Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah ta'ala wa barakatuhu. Welcome to another edition of It Takes Two. This is Safir TV on Sky 847 and I'm Bilal Ali Hugh. Ruby, assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam, how are you?
I'm well, alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. Sheikh Ahmed Hanif is joining us this week. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Good to see you, Sheikh. Good to see you. So we have our first dilemma, our first question. This one reads, Dear It Takes Two, I've been regularly taking recreational drugs for some time now. It helps me to relax and face problems in the world. It helped me to maintain my job, unlike the stereotype which is portrayed by many scholars. I want people to know about this as I hate having secrets. I also want to be in a relationship, but if it comes down to choosing between a husband and drugs, I'd choose the drugs. I've met a man who can be my potential spouse, but his worldview is black and white. Is it fair for me to make such a sacrifice for his sake? Very unusual dilemma question. There's a fiqh sections to the question which you can't ignore, but also the psychological elements. Would you like to start us off, please, Sheikh?
Yes. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. I think when we analyze this question, we notice that the person says, I take these drugs because it helps me to be calm and to face problems in the world.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at that statement, it is somebody who is using drugs as a crutch. It is also somebody who, him or herself, has a lot of problems that they find difficult to resolve.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you're dealing with issues that might be related to their past, their background, that have been so traumatic that they need drugs to escape. Yeah? And that these drugs become so important in their life for them to operate normally because they hold a job down and so forth, that it has become woven into their lives, and so you have a dependency problem here. From an Islamic point of view, we are not taught to escape problems. We are taught to go to Allah to help us solve our problems.
And when you say go to Allah, could you elaborate for us?
We mean make dua, and we mean make efforts to try to solve the problem. You see, Islam is not a fatalistic religion. You don't just pray to God for something and not try to make efforts to rectify that thing or to get that thing.
So the prayer is that in part, that Allah will make my actions successful to overcome the problem.
Exactly. All right? Because for prayer to be effective, it must have the conditions for that efficacy to take place. I will give you an example. A person is unemployed. They want to find a job. They pray and ask Allah, oh, Allah, help me to find a job. But you don't just sleep in and don't look for a job thinking that somebody's going to come knocking on your door to say, here is a job. You have to be making efforts to find that job. And in those efforts, you will get a job. Yeah? I think with this person, it's the same thing. Okay, they have problems. You don't escape your problems by going into drugs. One of the things that is very important for us to know is that people never, ever solve their problems by using drugs or alcohol. Never. In fact, their problems become worse. Depending upon the drug, for example, it could have very deleterious physical effects upon you. Okay, it could harm your health. This means it adds to your problems. Or there are some drugs, for example, that might not be as deleterious upon the health, but the pleasure from the drug by constant use becomes less and less and less until that drug is no longer providing the pleasure. However, the habit of taking that drug, and the psychological expectations and so forth that go on.
Psychological dependency.
Dependency is the only thing that is actually keeping you taking that drug. You see, so drug use or drug abuse is something that is by almost as a rule self-defeating.
I didn't get anywhere from the letter that was it a sister?
A sister, yeah.
Sister. The sister stated that she was having major life problems. Did she mention it was a recreational?
She said she uses recreational drugs, but to face her problems.
Okay, but there's a lot of argument. People will say, getting up in the morning and having a cup of coffee is their drug that helps them face their day, or having a cigarette. I think what the sister is saying is, I think she's almost blasé. She's saying, this is who I am, this is what I want to do, and you have to excuse me, but part of the letter didn't make sense. She wants to tell everybody. Why? It's an illegal act. Why would you tell everybody? Or is she saying that she wants to be with somebody who understands and accepts her for who she is because she's taking
She mentioned she wants to tell everybody, and I'm wondering if on a deeper level she's troubled by her usage. In some way she's unresolved because she's writing in, and she's also mentioning, I want to tell other people, as if maybe I'm wondering if she feels in some way guilty about it, and it's a way of trying to address her guilt.
But it didn't come across that there was any guilt in it. In fact, there was possibly some kind of proud thing that I'm under control, I still go to work or something. I think she said she can still function, which is she trying to convince the world?
Doesn't sound like she can function without the drugs, so that sounds like self-medicating. This is not me being judgmental, but just being analytical. It sounds like self-medicating, it sounds like dependency. Remember that oftentimes people are addicted, or they use substances or get into habitual processes because they're trying to, what they say, return homeostasis. So, without this particular chemical, I'm not calm. So what's my desire? To become calm.
I think,
and the drug helps me to be calm. So the issue is not the solution is not the drug necessarily, but it's finding ways, non-chemical ways, for example, to be calm. Is there any other way I can cope without this substance?
What really struck me from the letter, and what I'm concerned about, and it's not that I'm being judgmental, is that in the letter you kind of alluded to that you would choose the drug over a relationship or the possibility of marriage, because the drug is now more important to you than companionship. That, to me, rings alarm bells in my mind, because you're socially excluding yourself from a possibility of having a quality, a certain type of life, because you're quite happy in what you're doing. So I'm quite confused by the letter. Are you really happy? Is this really giving you answers? Because you're withdrawing, and I'm a bit alarmed by that, and I'm a bit concerned, because I think most people will want to have social interactions and relationships, but are you making a political statement? Then that's fine. But from your letter to say that you would choose a drug over a relationship that might be beneficial for you, inshallah, in the long run, it's a bit troubling.
Can I just talk about this ideological thing? I think you are hinting upon a very important thing here. There are, how would I say, groups, one could even say in some cases cults, that identify themselves with particular drug use, a particular drug of choice. All right? It is only if you believe that a particular action or orientation to the world is good or desirable that you would want everybody to know what you are doing. Okay? It is not just the drug and the individual person. It is a body of ideas that come along
Yes,
with that.
I
And
understand.
there are a lot of drug users that see themselves as special in society because of this particular drug use. You see? And it seems then that that person has this idea, has come under the influence of this idea.
Quite possibly.
You know,
Quite
because
possibly.
if you have an ideology, if you have a belief system that goes around something, one can say that I would choose my belief system over a person, over a spouse, over my parents, that type of thing, because that belief system is wider, bigger, more meaningful
Well,
than a
Well,
problem.
Well,
Yeah.
the drug use is definitely meaningful, because the sister even asks a question: is it fair for me to make such a sacrifice for his sake?
Yeah,
sacrifice of giving up the
giving
drugs.
something important. Yeah.
But again, if it's that important to you and you have an ideology and it's helping you with your life, where's the problem?
But
And why
that is,
share it?
that seems like the ultimate
What is the
question.
issue?
It sounds like what you're saying is almost, well, if it, you know, you'd think if it was that important, one would crack on and
Exactly.
keep it moving. So for the fact that somebody's actually saying, but you know, is it really fair on me? I think there may be an element of being confused, or
I think she knows what time it is, let's be honest here. I think she knows there's
sister sounds confused to me.
I think she knows there's an ethical issue here.
Oh, that bit
it-
is clear,
it-
but there is
and
a level of
there's a conflict
confusion
with-
in this conflict, unresolved tension
Exactly.
in this individual. For them to
Um,
write in and question the questions that they are posing, they're not questioning. They're not even saying, "Is it halal or is it haram?" I use it to cope. I need it to cope. It helps me to, you know, overcome my problems. In fact, it's so great that, you know, I want to tell the world. And this person that I met that could be a potential, he doesn't see it like that. He's black and white. Is it fair that I sacrifice for him? It's
Well,
confusion.
if you honestly feel that way, then obviously he's not. You've answered your own question.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's complete confusion, which again worries me, because I feel that the lines are being blurred as to the reality of what's really going on, what the religion says about certain things. So I think now is the time to step back and, as I keep saying, seek help and seek advice, because this is completely confusing and baffling.
Sure.
So I really think this is a warning sign, a blessing to step back and try and look through things through different categories.
I think the person also mentioned something about keeping a job, and it doesn't conform to a stereotype
Yeah.
of addiction, that type of thing. I think addiction is something stereotyped to a large
Yeah,
extent.
yeah.
Okay, there are people who could present to the world well put together,
High
hold down a
functioning,
job,
yeah.
hold down a job, high functioning type of profile.
Lots of
But-
people in the high functioning corporate world rely on drugs. That's not
Yes.
the point.
Ah.
That's not the point. That's misleading.
Yes, but this
Yeah.
person is saying, well, look, you know, addiction is something that destroys you on the outside. You know, you're dressing in smelly clothes, you're
Yeah,
unemployed,
you're begging and-
you're begging and you're stealing and stuff like that, which is one aspect of addiction. But there are other aspects of addiction, as you mentioned, that are high functioning
Yeah,
people.
yeah.
You know, however, deep down inside, they are in pain. Deep down in their inside, they have a dependency, and the effort, they have to make tremendous amounts of effort to continue appearing high functioning, because the world would not accept them
Without.
without.
And what happens if you get into a situation, say it's Ramadan and you have to fast? Well, what happens then? Because you need the drug, don't you, or it's 30 days or 29 days of not having it okay. This is what I mean. What
Oh,
you want to
Adam.
travel. What's you need to step back, and you really need to look at this, because it has bigger implications on so many levels.
Inshallah, the sister will reflect and
Inshallah.
make some
I
good
wish you all
decisions.
the
Do
best.
you like to add one thing? One last thing. The fact that you would reject a potential spouse because of the drug doesn't stop there. Okay? That means that anybody who opposes your drug habit, you could reject, like your parents, your siblings,
Authority
your
figures,
friends,
for example.
authority figures, anybody who rejects that or
Anybody who comes
opposes
between me and my
that become
drug
between me and
oppressed.
my drug is an enemy.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and this could really destroy.
Could be
your
dangerous.
social-
That could be
it very
spiritually dangerous as
yes.
well.
Definitely.
Inshallah, we'll go on to the next letter. The second letter reads, Dear It Takes Two, I'm desperate to have children, but I've lost all hope in getting married and I'm sick of people feeling sorry for me. I've tried to be religious, but I feel like being religious is what's preventing me from having children. My parents have been very supportive and have suggested IVF. The problem is we are worried about the Islamic implications. I have no idea what to do. I'd love to adopt someone, but the process is very long and has no guarantees. Sister Ruby, what's your immediate thoughts? Very sensitive subject.
My immediate thoughts is, quite honestly, I really do sympathise with this sister. I want to say that she's not alone. There are a lot of sisters who, for whatever reason, are not in a position to have a child. Be it medically, be it the fact that they haven't found a spouse, be it financially they can't, the list goes on. So I really think this is an issue that needs to be addressed in our community, because a lot of the time you get the answer that, as I said previously, this is your test, and in other words, let's give you a pat on the back and you just crack on. And I think it for a lot of women, being able to have children is, one, their right, and two, it does form their identity. And it is really hard. And it's something that stays with you. So I really do relate to her struggle in that way. It's great that she has the support of her parents, really. And remember, IVF doesn't necessarily mean that she's going to go through with the pregnancy. There's a lot of checks and stuff that needs to be done. But what can I say? It is so difficult. And many sisters, many people have come up with this moral dilemma, if you want. Their biological needs over their religious needs. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it is terrifically cruel and terrifically difficult to manage. So let's accept that. I just say, speak to people. Speak to people, and you have to weigh the pros and cons. I can't tell you what you need to do in your life, because I'm not going to walk your shoes, and I'm not going to be answering the questions on the day of judgment or whatever. But what I am here to say is that I completely understand and I can completely relate.
Well said. Sheikh, the sister says she's lost hope in getting married. That seems heavy. And she also mentions, I try to be religious, but I feel like being religious is what's blocking me from having a child. I'm not understanding that. What would you make of that?
Well, I can. It's simple.
Yeah.
I'm missing something.
Yeah, she wants to have a child.
Right.
But basically she wants to have a child outside of marriage. She's practically given up hope on getting married, but she still wants to have a child.
Right.
Being religious means that you have to be married to have a child. Okay? She's looking at IVF. IVF is an ethical dilemma for her, because IVF implies not being married. That's what she means.
Why can't you
Right,
get
she
married
wants to
and have
have
IVF?
Yes, you
With the
can.
person
That's
you're
no
married to?
problem.
Wants to
That's
get
absolutely
married,
no
but she
problem.
can't.
She has absolutely no problem. If
can't.
you are married and you get pregnant
Via
by
IVF.
IVF
Yeah.
with sperm donated by the husband.
Yeah.
Okay, but she thinks she can't get married. Okay, and the clock is ticking, and she wants a baby. So she wants a baby without being married, and this is why she sees religion as something that is restricting her.
Where does she go from there?
She has to obey Allah. She prays to Allah to find her husband, wait, okay, be open to suitors who may or may not come, but Allah would give her a husband.
What about if it's a husband for the purpose of having a child? Because she doesn't sound like she didn't say I'm desperate for a relationship, I'm desperate to love a man. She says I want a child.
That's no problem.
So she could, even if it were a mutter or a temp or a permanent marriage, but for the purpose. I'm just exploring the avenue of.
That's another way.
You see where I'm
That's another
going?
halal way.
Can we kindly just wait a minute?
Well, hold our horses?
Hold on, please. But this is why there needs to be females discussing these things.
All right.
That is such a typical male thing to say. I'm really sorry, but you had that chance and you had that opportunity to say, oh, wait for Allah to, you know, bring somebody. What if Allah doesn't bring anybody? What if it's not in her destiny to be married? From the letter...
What if it's not in her destiny to have children?
Well, it's a painful one, and she can have children because she has the options of IVF. What she's saying is, the religion is preventing me from reaching my biological potential. That's what she's saying, and that's what she's having problems with. The fact that Allah can bring somebody in her life, Allah can do everything, but He hasn't, and her clock is ticking. It's sounding like Big Ben at the moment, so she's thinking, you know, that really isn't comforting. And to have a scholar with absolute respect tell you that, you know, it's not in your, you know, maybe it's not in your destiny, I feel emotional for her. I'm like, but you're not sitting where the female is sitting.
So what is the nature, help me to understand what is the nature of the question, because if I understand it correctly, it's like if I speak to a brother and he says, you know what, I'm finding it hard to get married, right? And, you know, there's these prejudices in the community and I don't come from the right background or I haven't got the right connections. And so, you know, I just want to meet a woman because I'm a man and I'm you know, what are you saying, Bilal? Exactly, I would say I don't know. I say I know there's permanent marriage and there's temporary marriage, and you know,
you're not
going to rubber stamp that on me and have that on the day of judgment. That I was giving you the thumbs up.
But I think if this woman is desperate to have children,
that I understand.
Hold on, she's looked at all options, including Islamic ones. She's looked at all options. She's done her homework. To go for IVF, the amount of research and to get your parents' blessings, who could be Muslim, is huge. It's like being here and then ending up here. So she's looked at options. So I'm thinking...
This is good.
I'm thinking there is nobody around. That's why she's considering IVF or possibly getting a stranger's sperm and having a child. And she's even looked at adoption, which she said is true. It's difficult. It's hard. It's not guaranteed. It can take years. And everything has to be checked. It's quite invasive. You know, people probably want to say, so there's so many Muslim orphans in the world, why don't you adopt one? Adoption is difficult.
Not all the marriages agree that, you know, the IVF with a non-mahram husband is
I think she knows that. I think she knows that. What she's saying is, can somebody listen to me? Can somebody understand my pain? Can somebody not label it as, this is your test in life? Is there any other options? Are there any special criteria where we could bend or flex the rules? That's what she's saying. Almost like my parents have accepted me to have IVF.
Yeah.
Why can't everybody else?
If you can bend the rules.
That's what she's saying.
If you can bend the rules, or if the rules can be bent, okay, it would be in the law. It would be in Islamic law. The rules cannot be bent. You see? If you're going to have an in vitro fertilization, it has to be from your spouse.
Yeah.
Islam does not see the creation of a family outside of the relationship between a man and a woman who are joined in matrimony. Okay? Anything outside of that, you would call that, you know, non-legitimate.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And this is something that has very profound spiritual implications, not for all people under that particular umbrella, okay, but the likelihood of it under that particular umbrella.
The potentiality, yeah.
Okay, you know, there's a statement that says, when you ask Allah for something, you have to believe, you have to be sincere, you have to be certain that your trust in Allah is complete. You can't ask Allah for something and then rely upon your parents and rely upon this and rely upon that. It must be complete. You know, there's somebody in this world for everybody. You see? And it is about patience. And if you have that patience, that itself is its reward. It is possible that she could have a child by IVF and be a terrible mother that she had no idea she was going to be. Right? Nevertheless, we all agree, both people who believe in God and people who don't believe in God, that the best situation for a child to be brought up in is when they're in the presence of a father and a mother and a healthy domestic relationship. I think it's just because we live in a society that is very, very, that praises individualism, that people make these individual choices. So
I don't think that comment's fair at all. I really don't. You really have to sit amongst some women who have really struggled, and this is all they've ever wanted. And I think, you know, comments
like... What does that mean, though, sister? What do you mean?
What does that mean?
What does that mean? Like, I'm just thinking that as religious people, you say that Allah will set a criteria, and sometimes there's things that I really don't like or I find difficult and I struggle with. But do I just change the goalposts? Do I, you know, like, where is that a slippery slope? Are we getting into dangerous ground? Being human and feeling a certain way and feeling frustrated and feeling anguish, feeling angry at times, that's human, that's natural. But isn't the submission in the, although I feel all those things, I'm going to do my best to do what's right and work within the guidelines? I think
most people try to. And I think the beautiful thing about religion is everyone tries to find their path towards Allah. Not everybody takes the same path, and we've got to accept that.
For sure.
This thing about, you know, being hopeful, we must be hopeful and imagine that Allah has, you know, answered our prayers. But a lot of the time, you know, you think something's behind the door and it's not. Then what do you do? And this is the situation she's in. She's being realistic. And it's, you know, I've heard so many sisters say it's like a punch in the stomach. Everybody, you know, people don't know what to say. And what I'm saying is we don't know what to say to make you feel better or to give you answers or promise you that it's going to happen. And we understand that. And I'm not going to say, you know, of course Allah's capable of doing everything, but it might not happen for you.
But does that justify breaking the rules? For example,
I'm not suggesting she should break the rules. I'm just saying she's a desperate woman. Scholars, people need to understand this, and they need to come up with other suggestions as to what she can do to bring some comfort to the situation. Don't quote things, this person went through that and then she became this. That doesn't help her in this situation. And as you said, we're in an environment where there's so many other things offered to you that these things can be a tempting road to go down. That's all I'm saying.
I understand that.
I can hear that.
You know, but I mean, we go right back to the original issue of what choices she has within Islam. Okay? And having a baby outside of marriage is not a choice. You know, assuming and understanding, right, the biological imperative of a woman wanting to be a mother. Okay, another example is kind of extreme, but another example is somebody who's dying. Okay, they're dying, but they have, let's say, another year to live, but they're in extreme pain, right? And they might be in extreme pain until that year is up when they die. You know, some say, well, there's no hope in living. I can't rely on God to ease my pain, so I'll do euthanasia. You see? Right. It is not an option. It's just simply not an option. And what I think we have to realize is that in this world, sometimes, many times, our suffering and difficulties in life are a means of salvation in the other one.
Regardless of agreeing, disagreeing, the difficulty, we acknowledge the sister's pain and we acknowledge the power of dua.
Always.
And I thank you both for your time and thank you all for staying with us for the duration of It Takes Two, and hope to see you next week. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.